Yeah. All right, folks. We're going to start the presidential debate in earnest. All right, so I'm going to call down the candidates. Starting with Emily Bundesen. Sarah Marsh. And Ivan Mallet. All right, give a round of applause. SGA's mission statement indicates that the organization's goal is to serve as a liaison to the student body and to the university administration, as well as to serve the interest of our fellow students and contribute to the betterment of our community. Given that statement, I want to ask each of you, what does it mean to be the student representative? I'm going to start with Ivan.
Thank you, Marcus. So, to me, being the student representative means actively seeking the opinions of the student body, finding out what their concerns are, and with SGA, there's a number of different channels we have to do that. If someone wants to come directly to me, they can do that, but we also have the entire Senate, which accounts for every student twice, because you have residential students, commuter students, and then each one of those students has a different senator for their college that they can approach as well. So when you talk about issues like the dilapidated structures of the buildings and the issues going on there, I remember Caitlin Adams last year, she ran her entire campaign based off of trying to repair these issues within the College of Engineering. So if students are aware of what's going on in their college and they approach their college senator or even their DSAPs, they would be able to make SGA aware of this, and then in turn we can talk with facilities at Wright State and get these kinds of issues fixed. It also means to me being the person that is the main bridge of communication with the administration, and that means having a good relationship with the administrators. And over this past year, I've developed those relationships with the administrators to be able to be taken seriously when I go to them with student concerns.
All right, thank you, Ivan. Go ahead, Sarah.
All right, well, thank you to the Entrepreneurship Club. This is really fantastic. A lot of you don't know me because I'm not part of SGA at all. I've never been a part of SGA, and so I kind of have this disadvantage a little bit because I'm not entirely aware of what's going on in SGA right now. Ivan brought up a really great point. He had a lot of really great experience getting to know the administrators, getting to build these relationships, and I think that is a very important part of being, as you put it, the student representative. However, I think the president has a responsibility to understand the issues that students have, and not just by waiting for students to come to them, by contacting their senators, but by going out and actively seeking out their opinions, talking to new people every single day, saying, these are issues that I have seen, why is this an issue? Going up to them and genuinely asking their opinion, because we need to know these things. I know a lot happened during the strike, and whichever side you were on, it affected you. And I know from my point of view, it didn't feel like those concerns were really being addressed. Being the president means addressing all of the issues, addressing all of the opinions that happen on campus, making sure that students really feel like their concerns are being heard. And whether or not you believe the faculty was at fault or the administration was at fault, I think that student concerns were pushed to the side and not addressed. And that's my opinion. However, one of the things that I really hold dear, at least for this campaign and going forward, is I think SGA should be the heart of Wright State, not the head. We're supposed to be listening to you. We're supposed to be making sure that we have your best interests at heart, and that comes first.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I think being the representative means to me that you need to listen with your ears, you need to watch with your eyes, and you need to make decisions with your heart. So a lot of the things that have happened on this campus have affected a lot of us. SGA is one of those, avenues that you can go down and say, hey, I need you to do this for me, and we're there to do that for you. But you we need to be able to come together and recognize that it's not just SGA that needs to be the advocates for that. We need advocates all over campus. So I think being the student representative, you have to realize there's going to be hard decisions to make. You're going to have to realize that you need to be transparent and that there's a lot of things that are important on campus, but you also need to realize that you need to make decisions with your head and your heart. It can't just be what everybody wants you to do. You're going to have to make tough decisions, so do that with your heart, but keep in mind that it needs to be for the betterment of our students. So I will say that Ivan is part of SGA right now. Sarah has never been part of SGA. I have been part of SGA in the past. So this past year I was able to take a break, be able to get into my community a little bit, and it has been very eye-opening because I've heard a lot of opinions outside of the SGA world that have really helped me see a different perspective of students. So I think that's something really cool that I was able to do. And we do have values that we have on campus. We have a diverse campus. We have opportunity on campus. We have lots of communication on campus. Maybe not the best sometimes, but we have communication. So just being that avenue for better communication, better student life, and overall to have the best morale on campus that we can.
All right, thank you. Moving on to the second question regarding the strike. What actions would you take or would have taken in a similar situation to help students through this process? We're going to go reverse order. Start with them.
Yeah, so I think regarding the strike, like Sarah mentioned, it kind of affected everybody. And for me, I was lucky. I only had one professor that was involved in the strike. So I am in the College of Business. I know different colleges were affected differently. So I do know that it affected everybody. Just for me, it wasn't as much as a lot of the other students. But honestly, I think that we should work to move past it because I know that I'm tired of seeing Wright State negative in the media. You see something bad happen on campus and there's 5 news stations outside of the student union every single time that happens. But when we do something good, maybe there's 1 or 2. We had Raider Roundup, which is an incredible community thing that we did for our campus. We had maybe 2 news stations, including our Guardian, report on that. So I think the strike has just created a negative cloud over our campus, and we really need to work moving towards a positive cloud instead. So, yeah.
So I kind of addressed this earlier, but I was involved during the strike. For those of you who don't know, the Students for Faculty group, we were working very closely with the faculty to make sure that students knew what was going on. They knew how actions were going to affect them, and we tried our best to make sure that students could be involved and could have their concerns heard. A lot of this was part of like the sit-in. We did a lot of really great work, and we were able to talk to the administration. We tried to make those relationships with the administration to make sure that students got a unbiased view. And with that, we still found that the faculty is the side that, obviously that I took, but that was because my teachers are the ones who have taken me across the world, who have taught me every single thing I know. They're the reason I'm up here, because they have empowered me through my education to become the person that I am. And I am so thankful for that. For the students, it breaks my heart a little bit that the strike was very, very unfortunate, and I think it could have been avoided. And at the end of the day, the students were the ones who really paid for it. They had their classes canceled. They were the ones who were affected. They didn't know what was going to go on. They didn't know what was going to happen. And so moving forward, I really think that we need to build this trust back up between SGA and the students. We need to bridge that gap, which will ultimately bring students closer to the administration, to affecting what really goes on campus, to making sure that we have an inclusive and connected campus. When we build this sense of community, when we allow students from Raj Soin to interact with students from MedSci or from bioscience, we create these connections we create this community that ultimately brings all of us up and will make Wright State a better campus. And I think that's a big part of it.
Thank you, Sarah. Go ahead, Adrian.
Well, Sarah, I'm very glad that you mentioned the Students for Faculty part of this. While you were a part of that group, I was a part of the Students for Students group. We're called Student Government. And during the strike, there was a lot of things that we were doing behind the scenes that wasn't really well publicized. I think I was the only one at this table, at least, that met with both the executive board of the AAUP and administrators during the time of the strike.
That's
so,
not true.
Then there you go. So I had worked behind the scenes to try to, make sure that both sides heard students' concerns. We met with administrators. I met with President Schrader on the second day of the strike, talking about what classes weren't covered, and trying to make sure that they were at least aware of that. And then I was also meeting with the executive board of the AAUP to try to make sure they at least understood the position that the students were in during the time. So I have no regrets about what we did during the strike. I think that we did the best that we could with the situation that we had. I'm glad that the strike's over, and I hope to see this community move on from it.
If there's anything the three of you would like to further discuss on this, I'll give you an opportunity to do that now.
I think the only thing that I would like to say is that Students for Faculty did try to meet with President Schrader early on during the strike, and we were denied several times.
I heard that you were offered a meeting and that you
Very late into the strike.
and that you declined it on the spot.
We
We
were
had-
offered it during the sit-in. We were offered a meeting during the sit-in when we had very clear requests about what we wanted and what we wanted to see, and that was ignored, and we were tried to,
Sarah,
you tried to give us pizza to get us to go away.
Your requests were ridiculous in the context of reality and what was actually feasible. Your requests were for the Board of Trustees to resign on the spot. I don't know how you expect someone to try to work with you when your requests are so outlandish.
3 of our requests were not very outlandish. One of them was to maintain our teachers' right to bargain, which is their right by Ohio law and federal law. The other one was an apology to the students by the administration based off of their actions during and before the strike, which we've never gotten that. And the other one that was able to be addressed, or at least talked about, was potentially receiving reimbursement for all of the class time that we lost.
I'm going to refrain from any further comment.
All right, we're going to call up there. Would you like to say anything?
Yeah, I think that there's 2 sides battling right here, and being a student, I think the students need to be there for the students. It doesn't need to be an argument, it needs to be support of each other, because overall, it's the faculty or the administration, and then there's the students in between. Students need to be there for the students, and they need to stand up for the students, and we need to support each other, and just move past it as a whole.
All right, we'll move on to the third. What does SGA need in terms of administration and recruitment? We're going to start with Sarah. And afterwards, we're going to move forward to Adrian.
Administration, could you repeat the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah. What does SGA need in terms of administration and recruitment?
So, I'm afraid I don't know exactly how to answer this since I am coming from an outside perspective. I don't know exactly how SGA does that aside from elections. We do recruitment that way, but at the same time, if you're talking about recruitment for the campus, one of the things that I'd really like to see, we already have high school students coming to our campus. They're CCP students. I was part of the CCP program, and it's a wonderful program. These students are coming to our campus, and then they're leaving. They aren't getting involved on campus. They aren't necessarily aware of everything that, they're not necessarily aware of all of the resources that they have available to them, especially if they are students who want to go to Wright State and apply for these scholarships. I think one of the really good things would be making that information available to them, or at the very least, expanding some of the programs that we already have on campus to make it, again, creating a sense of community so that we reach out to these students and make sure that they know what they are able to do. if you could give me any more clarity on what you necessarily mean.
As I recall, when I was drafting this question, we're focusing mainly on manpower for the various student government activities, getting folks involved with certain campus activities.
Yeah. Well, I think we have a lot of very diverse, very involved groups already on campus who are doing a lot of great things, and I'm sure Ivan will elaborate more on what SGA is currently doing. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of what SGA is doing for that because I'm not privy to that information. I think the biggest thing is expanding that, making sure students are aware of what goes on campus, because I know there are a lot of things that do go on campus, but I don't necessarily know everything about that.
Yeah, I think one thing with the administration of student government is just watching out and trying to get a more diverse view of what students think. We have a number of different cabinet positions and executive board positions, and a lot of them seem kind of homogenous, where we all seem to fall in the same lines and same groups of people, and at the end of the day, you start to get that groupthink kind of product. So if we are able to expand out, reach out to more different groups, and I know that if you're involved in one organization and you expand out and start getting involved in more organizations, like Jeff there, you're involved in like 5 organizations or something crazy, and he's only a freshman. And like just having an expanded mindset, being involved in a number of different groups, and adding all those different perspectives into SGA, it's something awesome for us. And in terms of recruitment, we've historically had the freshman internship program, and I think that one thing that I would like to see in the future is the expansion of the freshman internship program and even the committee structures that we have within the cabinet to make it, I guess, more accessible. I think there's a little bit of a stigma with the committees and the different groups on campus, or the different freshman internship groups, is that you have to be a political science major, or you have to have a certain checkbox of things that you are involved in order to be involved, and trying to open that up and find a better way to advertise ourselves to all incoming students, especially because big picture things is that once students get involved on campus, their retention on campus increases significantly. It's better for the entire campus just to get students involved in the first place.
Alright, so this is admission and recruitment, correct? Okay. So some of you may know, but I do work as an admissions ambassador for Wright State, which is a really cool opportunity. So I'm going to kind of change this view a little bit. So I know that my sophomore year when I was involved in SGA, we had what was called the College Rep Leadership Summit. And that was a really, really cool opportunity with admissions to partner with SGA. So basically, it's a recruitment challenge with the DSAPs, so they could go out and recruit themselves because they need people from different colleges to recruit because they're the ones who know the best about their colleges. So when there are people interested in different colleges, the DSAPs could go out, recruit in that aspect, and then they had different tiers that they could reach. So that was a really, really cool program that we had, and I didn't see that this past year, which was a little upsetting, but hopefully we can bring it back next year. So something that I did learn through being in admissions is that reputation is one of the biggest parts of what makes someone decide where they're going to go to school. So with the reputation, again, we need to get that reputation back in the good spotlight. And then also I guess an idea is that we could do a leadership event with leaders at local high schools. So a lot of our population is local high school students that are coming here because it is a local university. So basically, we have a lot of leaders on campus. A lot of you guys in here are leaders on campus. So I think it would be really, really cool if we got the leaders from high schools to come and be mentored by our leaders on campus, and that gets them involved in the Wright State spirit as well. They're not just at their high schools, but they're at Wright State. So also the Student Success Center and enrollment did make a new division this year, so they are working together. So when we have students that are wondering about student success in general, it does relate back to admission, so that communication has become more clear.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. We're going to move on to the 5th question here. This question is talking about the independent rec center that SGA proposed earlier this year. We're going to start with to Sarah, then move on to Emily.
So, personally, I'm against the rec center, but at this point, it was put up to a vote to the students, and ultimately it's up to the students to decide that. Whatever they go along with, I suppose I will end up going along with because it is your choice. I personally am against it because I think the announcement especially of it was poorly timed. We just got off of a strike where we were told we don't have money to pay our teachers. We don't have money to give our teachers health care. So how are we going to build a new rec facility if we have no money? I later found out that it would be by adding on student fees to students who are already paying thousands of dollars for an education. And I know that I certainly don't have the money for that. And a lot of other students don't have the money for that, especially because we are a university that students come to because it is affordable. We don't go to this school because it has a bunch of new, shiny, pretty buildings. We go to the school to get a good, affordable education so that we can better ourselves.
All right, go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, so I can say that when I was involved last year, that I did meet with Eric Corbett about it, and I got a lot of information about the independent rec facility. But at that time, it was just an idea. It wasn't going to actually be put into action. Because is it the best time to do that? I don't know. Is there going to be a best time to do that? Again, we don't know. Because we do have students who are hanging by the skin of their teeth to pay for school. If you can't go to class and you can't pay for a textbook for that class, that's an issue. But at the same time, it is really cool, the idea about an independent rec facility, because you go to like NKU, they have a cool independent rec facility. Ohio State has an incredible rec facility. So there are a lot of public universities that do have independent rec facilities, and we just don't have that. It was not in the original framework for Wright State as it was for some of the other schools. So I think that's the hardest part about it, is trying to implement something new like that at such a time like this. So I think that it is definitely the student's decision. I'll support whatever the students want. I think it's a really cool opportunity, but I think it needs to be made by a general consensus. So.
All right, thank you.
So-
By the way, I do want to make an announcement. Feel free to show any positive adulation that you have, clap, snap. Don't refrain yourself, all right? Go ahead, Ivan.
So Emily, you're absolutely right. That there are a lot of public schools that have independent rec facilities, and actually out of 47 schools in the Ohio and Missouri Valley regions, Wright State is the only one that does not have an independent rec facility. So I guess the question really boils down to is how do we really market ourselves to those new students without having a similar product to what those other universities do? And in addition to that, you talked about fees and the cost of college. We are the lowest state tuition that's not subsidized by a public university. And out of those 47 other universities that I mentioned earlier, the average fees for those are $1,000. And at Wright State, we have none, or except for a $25 career services fee and an optional $11 legal services fee. So adding about $250 fee per semester would keep us well under the average of comparable universities, and it gives us a marketable tool that we will be able to use to recruit students. In addition to just building the rec facility, moving the current recreational equipment out of the student union opens us up to allow for more student spaces. I know one idea that was thrown out there was a bar. So if you want to build like a campus culture here in a campus community where you can actually have students that want to stay on campus and that want to be engaged and be active raters, then I think building an independent rec facility is the way to go.
All right. This is an opportunity to discuss.
Go ahead. Do you have something to say? Oh, okay. I'm just going to say that I personally like it. I'm just saying I want the students to be the ones who make the decision. We are not the ones who make the decision. So ultimately it is the student's decision. And that $25 fee that we had for career services, there were even some people who were stressed about $25 this year.
Sure.
So $250, adding a zero to that $25 might just be an issue, but again, student decision. So.
I know I don't have, sorry, sure you have a question?
I was wondering if you could ask a question or not.
We will have opportunity for that.
Okay,
Yes.
sweet.
Okay. I know I don't have another $500 to spend on school. I'm mostly paying for school myself with help from my parents still. And I'm very thankful that I have that opportunity where they can help me out with that, but it's still really hard. I think if we are adding on fees, it should be to update our current buildings, because we have buildings that are flooding in the Creative Arts Center instead of building a brand new building.
Sarah, you just said that, we don't come here for new shiny buildings. And then you want to spend all the money on, updating the buildings and, fixing them. I fail to see your logic and I guess.
That's fair. I think it's important to fix what we already have before we start building brand new things and then letting those fall into disrepair as well.
So I agree with you on that, but one of the ideas that we're looking at right now is to build the independent rec facility, and I agree with both of you that it should come down to a student vote. I hope the students are in favor of this idea. But one of the ideas that we're coming down to right now is maybe demolishing Med-Sci, which is the maintenance of Med-Sci costs more than any other building at Wright State. So that kind of knocks out two birds with one stone. We get a better recruitment tool, and we have less in maintenance costs.
All right, thank you. We're going to move to question 8 here. As we are a commuter school, many of our students leave campus after their classes are finished. One of my friends described this as he calls it the 4 o'clock dead zone. As a commuter school, what can we do to improve our campus's overall environment and to make students want to stay? We're going to start with Ivan.
Yeah, so I think a couple of ideas that we have to be able to, get rid of this stigma of being a commuter school. I really dislike that stigma. When I first started school, I was one of those students. I came here, I went to class, I may have stopped in the Union Market for a lunch, and then I went back home. But I wasn't engaged in anything. I wasn't really engaged, and I didn't really, do anything on campus until I joined a student org. So I think SGA being able to promote student orgs in general is, number one, a great place to start with keeping students on campus and getting rid of that commuter campus stigma, as well as another reason why a lot of students leave Wright State is because we don't have, the Union Market and the hangar close at unreasonable times, and they aren't open on the weekends. Why would a student come to Wright State and stay at Wright State over the weekend if they can't get anything to eat while they're here? I think if we start, looking into ideas on, keeping basic necessities available for students on weekends and other times than that 4 o'clock dead zone, then they will be much more enticed to be here, especially if they have a community of friends, whether that be Greek Life, another student org. Then that's how you keep students on campus longer.
Go ahead, Emily.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with that. And I also think that we do need to rework the student union. So we did have lots of renovations happen, and a lot of those offices that are down in that weird tunnel area did move up to the 2nd floor, which is kind of nice because it opens up that area down there. Because you know that there are the offices for like the big organizations in that small area. But now that that area is open, why are we not making offices for all of our other student organizations? So I think it would be really cool if we just rework the student union, because the student union needs to be for the students. It needs to be a student-focused area. It needs to be not as much administration in the student union, because we do need to make that a place where commuters can feel comfortable. It's not just about having a place to sit or needing to take a nap and having a place to take a nap, but the comfortability in the whole entire student union. And with commuters, I know that last year the idea of an open hour was brought. So the open hour would kind of just give you a time during the day, during the week, whichever day that we would feel is best, that we would not have any classes or anything going on. So you guys all know how we have April Craze and we have all those other big things, but a lot of people still can't attend those because we do have class going on at that time, which is not the best thing. So the open hour just gives you a time where there are no classes scheduled, nothing else is scheduled. If you're free, you can attend. We can have organizations hold events. We can have food trucks come on campus. We can do like a farmer's market on campus. Something fun for the students to do during that hour. And that way, all the students do look forward to that time during that week. That way, maybe they don't want to be on campus every single day, but if they want to be on campus at least one more day, that's one more day that they're here than they're not.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah.
I think both of those answers are really, really good. Like Elise mentioned earlier, a lot of our campaign is focused around building a sense of community at Wright State, and I think that's really important. Because we are a commuter student. I myself am a commuter student, so I've faced that problem before. Do I stay or do I go home? Especially because, for the most part, especially in my freshman and sophomore years, I was not really involved on campus because there didn't really seem to be anything that interested me enough to get me to want to stay to about 9 o'clock at night. I completely agree that reworking the student union would be a fantastic idea, making it so that students want to stay on campus, they want to get involved, making that information more available to them, increasing marketing, so that students know, like, these opportunities are there for me, and just they're interesting, they're engaging, and fun. I don't know. Yeah.
All right, thank you.
If I could.
Absolutely.
I think one great way to rework the student union would be building an independent rec facility to open up all that space.
Question 6. What can SGA do, or rather, what will you do in your position as president to better promote wellness on campus? We're going to start with Sarah.
So, wellness on campus is something that I think is very important. Crystal, my vice president, was not able to be here. She's working with the Office of Disability Services right now, and she's also she's very passionate about making sure that students have the resources available to them. Currently, our Wellness Center has a 6-month waiting period. So students who even want to go in for counseling are going to have to wait. And quite honestly, I think that's a little ridiculous, because when you're having an issue, when you need counseling, when you need someone to talk to you, you need it right then when you're having.
Again?
I didn't do anything. This time or the last.
All right. Just one moment here.
So, are you going to answer that question?
Oh, absolutely.
No, I didn't.
So, one thing that Adrian and I were looking into, Adrian's a biomed major, so one thing that we were looking into is trying to utilize the School of Professional Psychology on campus and try to use, the resident students to help, lower those wait times, especially in the more minor cases. Not to say that any, mental health issue is minor, but some are obviously more severe than others. So being able to utilize the residency students to help with those wait times and make sure that everyone gets the help that they need was just one quick idea that we had that we think could be implemented in the next year.
All right, thank you. Opportunity to discuss any of the topics that we have discussed so far. We covered the strike, we covered the Independent Rec Center, campus wellness, campus community. You can even make a statement of any kind that you like. All right. We're going to open up to audience questions. I believe that gentleman over there had one. Go ahead.
I'm not a gentleman. I cannot prescribe to that. I'm Sri, I use they and they're pronounced. So the first question is for Ivan, and I wanted to know how much percentage of votes do we need to get for the referendum to pass?
Per the constitution of the SGA, 10% of the student body population has to vote, and 50 plus 1 has to vote in the affirmative to make it pass.
So 10% of the student body
10
should vote, and out of that 51% should vote yes.
Yeah, I think it's about 1,300 is about what the vote needs to be at, and that would make 651 in the affirmative to make the referendum pass.
So out of 15,000 students at Wright State, 651 students get to decide if we want an independent reparations.
Obviously, we encourage all students to vote. 10% is difficult to do on any college campus, so getting 10% to vote in the referendum at all would be pretty impressive.
Would it be easier to get 651 votes from students say yes? Doesn't matter how many people.
If you're personally against the referendum, I encourage you to go out and spread your message. And at the end of the day, whichever message seems to resonate with the student body more is the one that's going to prevail.
The first question was percentages, because a lot of people are saying that the referendum would be representative of the student issue, but it won't be. So it's only 10% out of 15, 10%.
Well,
like
if-
651. So it won't be a representation.
If you look at statistical representation, you know, in presidential polls for a national level, they usually have a sample size of about 2,000 people in a nation of over 300 million, and they consider that representative. So 10% is pretty good compared to that.
But if you look at 10%, the top 10%, if you look at the statistical analysis, if you're doing that, there are people who go to Wright State who come from upper middle class to, like, let's say, who have good economic standing.
Right.
And there are people who come to Wright State who basically are not from a good economic standing. There are people who basically struggle to eat one day at a time, or like,
You're right.
there's a lot of stuff. So you gotta consider not only the majority, but the minority who's struggling.
The minority has every same opportunity to vote in that referendum, and I encourage
That
them
brings the
to.
question about the power dynamics of SGA and how it has been not so representative of the student body, and how student government, the power dynamics seems that people in student government tend to be the next one. You
All
get
right.
president.
Well, that sounds like we're moving on to another question, so I want to give someone else a
Yeah.
chance before we go on to that. I saw a hand here first earlier. No, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Lucy, I'm using his pronouns. So, we kind of got onto the topic of, hold on, what was it? Oh, yes. Touching up our current buildings. I do like what you said about trying to maintenance them as well. I also think that it would be possible for us to use the buildings that we have, like the colleges, to, you know, we don't just need one wellness center. If we could make every building have some form of wellness center, or like a lounge that is more of a relaxed space, I think that could be just as useful as having just one big one. Putting it to where people of minorities, such as, like, we have the Bundesen Center, but that's only in Mallet. We have so many spaces that we could put things in, and I think that would be more useful than just one big one. Do you guys have any thoughts on that?
I think that's a fantastic idea. I think so I go into the Multicultural Center a lot. I like staying in the Women's Center. And I think having that space where students are able to just go and relax and be in a sense of community with other people is a fantastic idea. I question whether spreading it out would really, I question whether or not it would help or hurt basically that community, because having that one area for them means that all the people who want to go there are able to go and interact with other students who have very similar ideas. And that enables people to go and make new connections, whereas if you're spread out, you're generally going to meet people. So I'm in Mallet a lot because I am a political science major, and so it's really convenient for me. But I've also had the opportunity to meet other students from different colleges who I wouldn't normally interact with because they're going there. Versus if we had one of those centers in every single building, convenience-wise, I would think students would just go to that one and not branch out as much. But I think it's a fantastic idea that should be addressed.
All right, the other two, would you like to respond to that
Yeah.
question?
Go ahead.
Okay, I really like the idea. I just have to say that the reason that it's located where it is because it is a private area for the students who are dealing with those mental issues and everything related to that. It's kind of like their small area of Wright State that they can go to. So I just think that breaking it up might not make it fully centered to those students. But I do really like the idea of maybe having a second one on campus, because I know that we have the Student Success Center for all of our students, but like the engineering in college, they have their own Student Success Center. So that's catered towards them. So maybe instead of it just, so there's, basically what I'm trying to say is there's the Student Success Center, but then there's also a branch of it. So I think it would be cool if we had the health and wellness and all that mental area the mental and counseling area in that central location, but have a branch of it. So maybe not branches everywhere, but definitely have a branch somewhere else, because you don't want it just on one side of campus, because not everybody's always at student union. So, yeah.
Ivan?
I think the centralization of the mental health facilities on campus is important. Students know exactly where to go for that kind of thing. Hopefully they know where to go, and if not, it's easier to tell them to go to a centralized location. But in terms of other student hangouts and locations on campus to have that sense of community, I think those should be everywhere on campus. And I hope to find a way to logistically make that happen.
Sarah and Emily, I realized I didn't give you a chance to answer the previous question.
It was directed.
It was directed.
Oh, well, yeah. Go ahead.
So this is going to be slightly long-winded, but hopefully it'll be good. So none of you have ever been student body president before, and this past year, having served, in some sort of representative capacity, I've found that the position often amplifies what you already care about. You're not going to suddenly be interested in something that you didn't care about before. With someone like Sarah who hasn't been in SGA, I don't still think that's an excuse for not being an advocate and not working towards issues that are important for the people you would represent if elected. So I guess the question I have for all three of you is, what have you done on behalf of marginalized, minority, or otherwise underrepresented communities at Wright State that you could then use your position to amplify if elected?
Fire away, whoever wants to take first.
Well, one thing that I've been working on with you, Adrian, is the Retain the Nine initiative. The Retain the Nine initiative came out of the organization Black Men on the Move. And the reason why it's called Retain the Nine is because historically about 9% of the student body population has been African American and underrepresented minorities. So the goal of the initiative is to retain them on campus because historically they have a much lower retainment rate than other populations on campus. So, working with you two on that has been an amazing experience, and I hope that, in the future we can really kick that off and make it a more in-depth thing that, I want people to come to Wright State because of the Retain the Nine initiative, because they know that when they come to Wright State as an underrepresented minority, they have a better chance to succeed in a university setting because of initiatives that our students started. And another thing that I would say is not necessarily an underrepresented minority, but definitely a smaller population on campus is our veteran population on campus. So over this past year, I was able to work with the university and with the Nutter Center to get a POW MIA chair installed in the Nutter Center, just to pay a tribute to those, those service members that were not able to return from a conflict zone. So those are two things that I've been working on over the past year for those kinds of populations.
Okay. Well, to be very honest, I was in a study abroad last semester, so I haven't had the opportunity to do a lot on campus. That being said, a lot of what I've been doing throughout my education, I've worked very closely with the Multicultural Center, and I'm actually, shameless plug, I'm doing a presentation, tomorrow's Thursday? Yeah, Thursday, for the Women's Center, specifically talking about a woman's place in society with an intersectional view. A lot of what I'm trying to focus on, aside from community, is building inclusion and building diversity into SGA and building it into Wright State. And I think that the Retain the Nine initiative is fantastic. I know that Russ has a program, the Belinka Center has the Ojima program. Rainbow does a lot of things on campus to make sure that underrepresented students are able to get the same opportunities as other students, and make sure that their education is a quality education and they get a holistic experience, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I had something else that I wanted to say, but I can't remember. I think, I remember. One of the things that I want to change, there's a part in the SGA Constitution that I found out about when I read it, But currently, students with disabilities are unable to run for the office of president. And that is because the president has to be full-time. I understand this in an aspect of if you are able-bodied, you should be going to, within this, you should be going to campus, you should be taking classes because the president is funded, they have a stipend that basically allows them to not have to worry about working, which is a very big privilege. However, I think that students, Wright State is currently, I think, #3 in America for promoting students with disabilities, for accessibility, and making sure that they have this opportunity to get to the highest office is important because, as Adrian put it, leadership is often representative of what they already care about, and it's often representative of the ideas that they're going to bring in. And so if students who have a disability are unable to get into office as the president, we're not necessarily going to have these viewpoints that are going to make Wright State even better for students who have disabilities. With that said, I would put a clause, I would like to see a clause put in making it so that if you're registered with the Office of Disability Services, saying you have a disability and that is the reason you have to be half-time, that would allow you to still run for president, making SGA a better advocate for students who have disabilities and making it so that this large group of students on campus who have incredible ideas can also be president.
Thank you, Sarah. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I remember that, so kind of with how I have worked diversity into me, or into what I've done, is that we have gone to different, like you talked about the multicultural centers. So I have people who I know that have been in the different multicultural centers, who've gone and spoke to them, asked them. Last year was a lot about collaboration. So I think a lot of what we need to do is work in collaboration with those different diversity groups. And so Austin is Director of Outreach and Collaboration. He's done an amazing job with that this year. We have the collaborating organizations that have come to SGA and they've expressed their concerns, and we've helped to improve that a lot, I think, this year. So I think one of the main things is just having an open stream of communication with those different groups, because everybody has a different background, and so diversity is not just what you look like, it's where you come from, it's who you are, it's built into your DNA. That's what diversity is. So also, the LEAP program is very important on campus too, and a lot of people don't know about that, which is learning English for academic and professional reasons. So when I take my tours out, I always go past their office because I always encourage students to become a part of that. So basically, if you don't know what it is, for 30 minutes to an hour a week, you basically get paired up with an international student who's trying to learn English to take their classes here, and you talk to them. So they can learn how we speak here, and they can learn how to talk as an individual to their professors and to their peers. So the LEAP program is something that I've definitely been working on, and I guess you could say. I did it a lot when I was involved in my sophomore English class because we got extra credit for it, and it ended up being one of my favorite things to do. So yeah, I think encouraging those types of programs is something that's very important to do.
Excellent. All right, we're going to run with 2 more questions.
I'm sorry, I have a direct rebuttal to one of the questions or one of the statements in general.
Well,
I just wanted to
rebuttal
clarify.
isn't exactly the question. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to clarify. I wanted to have the specific bylaws of SGA with the position of the president read.
Where can you find those bylaws?
It's in the
Oh, excuse me.
All right, so if you want to view the bylaws, you can find them online.
I just wanted to be specific.
I would also like to respond to the question as a rebuttal, just for clarification. There is nothing in the Constitution that prohibits anybody with disability from running for president. The Chief of Staff, Christian Cooper, can confirm that. I can confirm it. I have admin
That's not
access
the
to the
point.
Constitution.
Hold on a sec. I understand all this. If you are interested in the rules of the Constitution, go ahead and look them up. But we're trying to give people time for questions.
Yes, that's
You
what
had one
I'm
right.
So I refuse, so I'm going to try and succinct this because I know we're short on time. My name is Renaissance. You say them pronouns. I just a little bit of a story real quick. I was a student, didn't know about SGA, found out about SGA, and kind of sat in on SGA, made it so that public comments were a thing, and so that I could talk and rant at SGA about school problems. And then they seemed to enjoy me so much that they offered me a seat at the table, which was really cool. But I do think there are problems with SGA, but outside of SGA. Okay, sorry. So one thing that I deal with on campus is accessibility. And as a student who uses wheelchair, a lot of our structures, while they are sound, they are also dangerous. Coming in today, there was a platform that was raised just about this much, and I couldn't make it over with my power assist. And now I think my power assist is a little wonky, and that's a $6,000 device. If that were to happen with somebody's manual chair, power chair, that would also be an issue. I also think the problem with the accessibility comes back to the fact that we've laid off so many maintenance people. We no longer have a professional bricklayer at the school because they were let go or terminated or what have you. And so a lot of our bricks that are all over campus are in disarray. And that's an issue. Also on the point of...
Could you bring it to like a point?
Yeah, sorry. So my kind of question is... what do I want to say? There's so many points in my head, but I guess I'll veer off of that. What as an individual do you care about the most, or would you like to enact in your life that maybe is missing at Wright State, or where do you see your passions in your playing with your position?
How about we start with Emily?
Okay, thanks. So I think one of the main things that's missing in my life as a college student is definitely tradition on campus. We don't really have a lot of traditions that we can come back to. I know that with the Students First Fund, we are working to get a seal put in to a specific location on campus and maybe create a tradition that way, like step on the seal, you get good luck on your test, that kind of thing. Because when you go to like Ohio State, you rub the head. You know what I mean? So I think tradition is definitely something that we need to work on. And I think working with the 67 Society, since they are a part of that Students First Fund, I think that's something very important. I'll come back to other stuff we get to that.
Try to get through Go ahead, Ivan.
Well, I think, one thing that I think Wright State could do better at, that I could help bring to this campus is, that sense of community. That Raider pride, I suppose. I remember, going to the game yesterday and, just being there to cheer on the student section, and there was only a limited number of us that were able to go. I think that through a number of different measures, we would be able to help build that sense of community. Maybe, one simple thing is if we make it back to a championship game like that, cancel classes for the day. Give students the opportunity so that they don't have to worry about, like, I would like to go to the game, but I'm missing class. Or, even trying to make the student section more accessible. I know there was a student at the game yesterday who was wheelchair bound, and she sat in front of the student section and didn't feel included as much. So I think finding a way to, really make the different, informal groups of students more connected as a whole, and see each other as Raiders, and not just, that other person that's in the student section with me. I think that would be awesome for us on this campus.
Sarah?
I agree with Ivan. I think community is one of the biggest things that I want to stress. I want to make sure that we're building that community on campus. We are bringing together the different colleges. We're working with students who are not necessarily involved in our majors. And that would be outside of the Common Core, like the Common Core classes that we are required to do to graduate. A lot of times, the only time I will interact with students outside of my major when I'm not in class is through the Multicultural Center, because classes are not necessarily as diverse, and I understand why. But I think having those resources available and building those connections between different groups, between SGA and Rainbow and Feminist Majority Leadership Alliance and the Entrepreneurship Club, all of this stuff, bringing all of those groups together, making sure that we all share this sense of we're all students, we're all Raiders, and we're all working towards a goal of we want to get an education to make our lives better so we can go out and do whatever we have put our life towards.
Thank you, Sarah. Sorry.
Okay.
There's a lot of consensus around our community. I really love that. Gonna go to you there.
She had her hand up first.
All right, go ahead.
Right. So I wanted to start off with a comment. It's something that came to me, Ivan, when you were talking about mentoring high school leaders, bringing them to Wright State, and my friend over here also kind of touched upon with his question.
There.
Like Emily said, diversity is where you come from, and there's a lot of invisible barriers that keep people away, not included. And if you're not able to see those invisible barriers and somehow work around them and give student government the tools necessary to take those into consideration and work past them, that's something that the president needs to exhibit, whoever you are. Going back to my question, this pertains to keeping the hangar open for longer periods of time, staffing the rec center. How are we going to afford staff for all these things to make campus a better place in whatever way that they are? Because, like I tried to touch upon, what holds students up is a very intricate web. It comes from staff, it comes from faculty, it comes from all these people. How are we going to get those resources to make student life better?
Right.
Sarah, you want to go first?
Oh, I thought that was direct.
It was for everybody.
Oh, okay, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
I actually want to go to the 2 things. Is that all?
Yeah, so the actual cost of maintaining, upkeeping, and staffing the independent rec facility is actually, kind of ingrained in the total cost of that. We did keep operational costs in mind when we developed that budget. So that's one thing. And then after that, if we were to pass this referendum, build an independent rec facility, and we start to see a revitalization of our campus, we start to see our enrollment numbers go back up from 13,000 now to maybe 15, 16,000 in the future, then we will have those enrollment dollars to start, rehiring those people that we unfortunately had to lay off in the past. And that's when you can really see the revitalization of our campus and start to see us becoming a stronger campus community. It's not a 1-year fix. It's probably a 5 to 10 year fix because, even at the Temple University, last time they had a strike, their enrollment dropped by 10%. And that was just over the course of the strike. It took them 10 years in order to remake those numbers. I don't think that those effects are going to be as bad here at Wright State because we're a resilient community. But it will take time for us to move on from the strike, and I think it's important for us to. If we were to do nothing else this year, and you go down to that hallway in the tunnels that has the history of Wright State and painting there. The only thing that there would be in 2019 is that we had a strike in January. We have 11 more months in the year for us to do something with our Raider community to make it something that we can put something positive on that wall and let us know that yes, that did happen, but we do need to move on from it, and we will move on.
Well said. Emily? Go ahead.
Yeah, so I definitely agree because a lot of the money that funds the people who work here does come from our tuition. So we really need to make sure that we're working on retention, not just retention, but getting students to come here. And the issue that I think we're having with getting new students is that the amount of students, it's known by stats that the amount of students that are in Ohio that are looking for college is decreasing a lot. So you still have the same amount of colleges, because obviously all of us are still here, you have the same amount of colleges fighting for these students to come to our campus. So I think it really is going to come down to retention and recruitment with Wright State. And then also just going through the budget. I mean, the budget, like Ivan said, it was, I guess, fractioned out for operations for a reason, because we knew that that was going to be a big part of it. So Eric does know that that's a big part of it, because we have people who are taking their recycling and putting it in with the trash, you know what I mean? So I think it would be important to get our normal janitorial staff back up and not have trash sitting around for a week before staffing an independent rec facility, but that money needs to come from somewhere, and I think that's definitely retention. So.
Sarah?
I agree with Emily. I think retention is one of the biggest things because, as you said, a lot of our money comes from tuition. I don't know all the budgets that go into how we pay for that, but I think that's one of the things that I would like to look at if I'm elected president. I think, as we kind of started out, SGA is supposed to be advocates for the students, and so at the very least advocating to the administration that for these changes, for if students vote for a rec facility, doing that, maintaining our buildings, making sure our trash is taken out more than once a week. Just advocating is the biggest thing that SGA can do to make sure that student concerns are heard. And at that point, when we build those relationships with the administration, I think that we will be able to, in the end, work to some sort of conclusion that is favorable to all sides.
All right.
Thank you.
We're going to move on. I'm sorry, folks. I called it that last one. It's going to be the last question there. We're going to move on to give you all an opportunity for closing statements. We're going to start with Emily here.
Yeah, I just want to say that I really appreciate you guys being here. Student support is something that keeps us all running, and I know it definitely keeps me running. I am a words of affirmation person, so I appreciate you guys being here because it's words and presence. So I just want to say that I am really proud to be a writer. This community is my home. I've made it my home. I hope that everybody can make it their home someday if you haven't already. I think that being involved is something that we always need to strive for. We need people to be involved no matter what, because how our orgs can keep running if we don't have involvement in them. So I think being able to be involved on campus has been really eye-opening to me, and I just hope that you guys can see that I do love my community, and I love my students, and I love you guys. So.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Okay, so I guess closing statement. I'm really glad, like Emily said, I'm really glad that you guys are here. I think that students being involved on campus is one of the biggest things that I see as kind of almost a problem because we are a commuter student. We don't have a lot of students who stick around, and so hopefully we can change that. But I'm really glad that you are out here, you are getting involved, you're getting informed. I think one of the things I forgot to touch on was I want to make sure that campus feels safe to everyone. Because I know I have had bad experiences personally as a woman that have happened on campus, and I won't go into it because I can't. But I want to make sure that students feel safe on campus, and I think that, again, is part of making sure that Wright State is a place where students are proud to go to. They are proud to have it on their transcript, have that diploma, and say, I went to Wright State, and have people take them seriously. Because I think it can be a really great university as long as the people who have the opportunity to do so put in the effort to do it.
Well, I'll echo what both of them said and thank everyone for coming out here. I'm glad that there's dissenting opinion. I think that conversation with dissenting opinion is important. Obviously, you're never going to get 100% of people on board with you at one time. But I will say that I think that everyone up here has the same goal. We all have the same interest in mind. We do want to see this community grow. We want to see this community prosper. And I think that by voting for Adrian and myself,